Hey there, welcome to another episode of Blake's Everyday Podcast. I just realized as I was about to do the video, I turned on the camera and my kids last night, they put a face tat, one of those fake tattoos on me. I forgot completely about it, to be honest with you, and I just want to be clear. It's just like a fake paw print tattoo. Why would they put it there? I have no idea. It kind of looks like a teardrop. And I actually went to the store just a little bit ago. Didn't even realize. So that's kind of embarrassing. I probably looked very trashy. Because I don't know, you really can't tell what it is until you get like up close and personal. People probably thought I was a gang member or something. Well, no, nobody thinks that I'm a gang member. Who would think that? But so just try not to focus on that. Let's focus on the words of the Lord. So last night we finished chapter 3 of 2 Samuel. So today we're starting off at chapter 4. And the title for chapter 4, and just so you know, we're probably not going to do a very long video tonight just because it's late here. My phone's almost dead. I would grab my charger, but my wife's kind of going through some stuff. So I don't want to go in there and wake her up and just to grab my charger. Next time I go in there, it's to go to bed myself. So the title for chapter 4 is Ishbosheth murdered. When Ishbosheth, son of Saul, heard that Abner had died in Hebron, he lost courage, and all Israel became alarmed. Now Saul's son had 2 men who were leaders of raiding bands. One was named Baanah, and the other Rechab. They were sons of Rimmon the Beerothite from the tribe of Benjamin. Beeroth is considered part of Benjamin because the people of Beeroth fled to Gittim and have resided there as foreigners to this day. Jonathan, son of Saul, had a son who was lame in both feet. He was 5 years old when the news about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. His nurse picked him up and fled, but as she hurried to leave, he fell and became disabled. His name was Mephibosheth. Now Rechab and Baanah, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, set out for the house of Ishbosheth. And they arrived there in the heat of the day while he was taking his noonday rest. They were into the inner part of the house as if to get some wheat, and they stabbed him in the stomach. Then Rechab and his brother Baanah slipped away. They had gone into the house while he was lying on the bed in his bedroom after they stabbed him and killed him. They cut off his head, taking it with them. They traveled all night by way of the Arabah. They brought the head to Ishbosheth, to David at Hebron, and said to the king, "Here is the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, your enemy, who tried to kill you. This day the Lord has avenged my lord the king against Saul and his offspring." David answered Rechab and his brother Baanah, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, "As surely as the Lord lives, who has delivered me out of every trouble, when someone told me Saul is dead and thought he was bringing good news, I seized him and put him to death in Ziklag." That was the reward I gave him for his news. How much more when wicked men have killed an innocent man in his own house and on his own bed, should I not now demand his blood from your hand and rid the earth of you? So David gave an order to his men, and they killed them. They cut off their hands and feet and hung the bodies by the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ishbosheth and buried it in Abner's tomb at Hebron. Okay. So we only have one description here, which I'm going to get to in just a second. Yeah. So chapter 4, verse 9. David acknowledged God as the source of his deliverance. If we cannot give God the credit for our victories, it is obvious that we never really surrendered our lives to him in the first place. We need to give credit where credit is due. Praising God for our victories is a good way to show how much we depend on him and appreciate his help. Okay. Sorry for all the yawning. Like I said, it is probably pretty close to midnight here, and I had a really long work day. And then after work, which I got off work probably about 7:30. After work, though, I typically get off at 5, but tonight I wanted to get some extra stuff done. So 7:30 is when I basically logged off from work, and once I got off, the kids were running ragged. So tried to, and my wife's kind of, going through Mother Nature right now. So I wanted to give her a chance to have a break, because it's hard. And so it's been a long day. And usually when I work this late, I like to stay up a little bit, and it's not good, but it happens. That's just how I am. And the longer I work, the more time I want to spend alone. And then, when you add having crazy kids around into the mix, use that time to add into your time alone. So, once they go to bed and all that, and say you've been busy since 8 in the morning till 10:30 at night, it's like, okay, well, I'm definitely staying up pretty late tonight. All right. Chapter 5, David becomes king over Israel. All the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, "We are your own flesh and blood. In the past, while Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel on their military campaigns. And the Lord said to you, 'You will shepherd my people, Israel, and you will become their ruler.'" When all the elders of Israel had come out to King David at Hebron, the king made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned 40 years in Hebron. He reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem he reigned over all Israel and Judah 33 years. The king and his men marched to Jerusalem to attack the Jebusites who lived there. The Jebusites said to David, "You will not get in here. Even the blind and the lame can ward you off." They thought, They thought David cannot get in here. Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion, which is the city of David. On that day, David had said, anyone who conquers the Jebusites will have to use the water shaft to reach those lame and blind, who are David's enemies. That is why they say the blind and lame will not enter the palace. David then took up residence in the fortress and called it the city of David. He built up the area around it from the terraces inward, and he became more and more powerful because the Lord God Almighty was with him. Now Hiram, king of Tyre, sent envoys to David along with cedar logs and carpenters and stonemasons, and they built a palace for David. Then David knew that the Lord had established him as king over Israel and had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. After he left Hebron, David took more concubines and wives in Jerusalem, and more sons and daughters were born to him. These are the names of the children born to him there: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ibhar, Elishua, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama, Eliada, and Eliphalet. Man, that's going to be the next name that I use for one of my kids. Eliphalet. No, definitely not. I'm not going to have another anyways, but because we're maxed out. We're maxed out in this household. When the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king over Israel, they went up in full force to search for him. But David heard about it and went down to the stronghold. Now the Philistines had come and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired of the Lord, shall I go and attack the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hands? The Lord answered him, go, for I will surely deliver the Philistines into your hands. So David went to Baal Perazim, and there he defeated them. He said, as waters break out, the Lord has broken out against my enemies before me. So that place was called Baal Perazim. The Philistines abandoned their idols there, and David and his men carried them off. Once more the Philistines came up and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired of the Lord, and he answered, do not go straight up, but circle around behind them and attack them in front of the poplar trees. As soon as you hear the sound of marching and the troops on the tops of the poplar trees, move quickly, because that will mean the Lord has gone out in front of you to strike the Philistine army. So David did as the Lord commanded him, and he struck down the Philistines all the way from Gibeon to Gezer. All right, we're going to call it there. I'm going to definitely read the descriptions real quick, but we're going to call chapter 5 our last chapter for the night, just because, like I said, it's late. My eyes are getting a little blurry. Chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. David was anointed to be king of Israel years before his ascension to the throne. David's crowning is a reminder that God is faithful to his promises. Notice that God's promise to David were not fulfilled right away. He had to wait for many difficult years. He spent much of that time as a fugitive, without a home or country during that time. God supplied David with the help he needed to survive. Spiritual renewal and transformation are not accomplished instantly. I like that. They take strength and perseverance. They take a lifetime. But God supplies his strength and protection as we continue seeking him and surrendering to him throughout our lives. I really like that description. Because it takes time. It really does. You might go to church thinking that you're going to get you're just instantly, sure, you might find God, and you might talk to him, you might pray, and you might have really heard a great message, and I pray that happens for anybody that needs it. Well, everybody needs it, but to get better, to be a more Christ-like, it really takes time. And I have a lot of really close friends, that, it's remarkable, just like seeing how they are. And, obviously you can't compare yourself to others, but when you see somebody doing really good, following Christ, and you definitely want to try to learn, and learning comes from reading and talking to God and fellowship you, and it takes time. Really finding a rhythm, it takes time to get into a rhythm. I don't know. I just, what I'm trying to say is, you can find salvation overnight, but you cannot just immediately start walking into like some kind of dang, I'm gonna have to basically what he's saying and what the description's saying here, I'm agreeing with that. That's all I should say. I agree with that, because I'm not the greatest at explaining things, and I'm learning still. Well, everybody's learning something new every day, but I'm still I'm like a baby to all this. This is the first time I'm reading the Bible, so, and I'm sure my points are going to get better and better as I move on and continue reading the Bible and doing all these things. But I think, when I talk about this kind of stuff, like this description, it hits home for me, because throughout my trials and tribulations with walking with Christ, before I really truly found Christ, I was still going to church. I just wasn't really, I was taking it all for granted, basically. I didn't truly follow. I was there, but I wasn't there. And I look back at those times because I was in a really dark place, but eventually, I gave myself to Christ, and it takes time to really, it took me time. I should say that. It took me a while to really give myself to Christ. And once I did, it was instant relief. Honest to God, I used to be pretty depressed, man, and I'm pretty dang happy now, man. I can't complain about nothing. Got 3 beautiful kids, awesome wife, lots of great friends. So there's nothing to complain about here. And I think, and of course there's going to be rough patches in your walk, but But that's part of the journey, right? And trusting in God is going to help you get through those problems. But enough of my babbling. Chapter 5, verses 6 through 8. The arrogant Jebusites thought their city was invincible. They said, "You will not get in here. Even the blind and the lame can ward you off." As we progress spiritually, it is easy to assume that we are immune to the dramatic reversal. Then we are shocked when it happens, as were the Jebusites. We would be wise to be humble and keep our guard raised against a possible fall. Yeah. Chapter 5, verse 13. At the height of David's political career, he began to build his harem. This was customary for kings in the ancient Near East, but his decision to be like other kings carried a price tag with it. In later years, conflict between David's many children almost destroyed both king and kingdoms. Sometimes God's plan will lead us away from the norms of the society around us. If so, we can either follow God's ideal or suffer the consequences. I agree. I almost said I agree. I don't know why, but I guess that's what I almost said. So tomorrow we will start off at chapter 6. We read 4 and 5 tonight. Yeah. Dear God, we come to you tonight just grateful for everything that you've done for us, Lord. We are so grateful for you holding your hands over us, Lord, and keeping my family and anybody that's watching their families safe and healthy, Lord. I pray for peace all over this world, Lord, and I just pray that we can find salvation in you, and which we will. God, we're just so blessed for the food that you've kept on the table for us and kept us moving and kept us under your will, Lord, in God's name, amen. Not a very good prayer that time. I could have done better. It doesn't matter. Best thing you can do is talk to God like he's your friend. So that's I don't know. I try to perfect it, but there's no perfecting it, you know. You just gotta pray. Praying is the best type of prayer. But I hope you guys have a good rest of your night. It is Tuesday tomorrow. Tonight's Monday. Hope everybody had a good Monday. I hope everybody has a great Tuesday. I will talk to you tomorrow. Good night.